do you actually recognise the direction of your swing by the way you're moving, not just swinging the golf club? By thinking of the club, the swing just becomes a turn, a swish, and a turn, when actually it's what's happening during those turns that's really going to influence the direction of the swing. Because there's so much more than just turning. What's the body doing between the rotation from the backswing into the downswing? And it's that time that is absolutely critical that we're going to look at today, because this is where the magic happens. This is where the golf swing organises itself directionally to fire that sequence and create that release pattern in the direction you intend. So as a right-hander, for a draw, that's to the right, and for a fade, to the left. Obviously vice versa for the left-handers. So are you actually recognising your swing direction, which is going to influence the path? Some people call it transition, some people call it the start of the downswing, some people call it, as I do, just change of direction, because that's all it is. You're just changing the direction that you're swinging the golf club. Changing direction of how you're moving the body. So we're going to do an exercise where we can start to really recognise that change of direction, because when you rotate back, the pelvis is rotating, rib cage is rotating, and you're making a full swing. But then what happens from here? What starts the downswing? Do you start with the hands? Do you pull? Do you just turn the shoulders? Do you try and bump the hips? Do you try and rotate the hips? Well, if you're thinking of any of that, that's far too complex already, and it's going to slow you down, because that's conscious thinking, which is really operating far too slow for this phase of the golf swing. We are now in that acceleration phase. We're changing direction and we're starting to get ready to deliver the club. So the forces are starting to ramp up. We don't want to be slowing this thing down, thinking about what's starting what and where a particular body part in space is. We want to feel the motion. Now, you may have seen this exercise on the GRFi system, and it looks like this. We start with a stance, club in the lead hand, weight on the back foot, and we rock the board forward on the count of 1. Then we rock the board back on the count of 2 to make the backswing. But on the count of 3, we flex into the ground to tip the board back, but the golf club is still travelling on the way up. And it's this flexion on the way down that changes the direction, decelerates the club, almost creating a bracing sensation through the body, because it's changing direction rapidly. And then we're going to go up on 4. But let's focus on 1, 2, 3. So it's forward on 1, back on 2, loading on 3. And we'll just do that again. Just bear in mind, we are flexing to load, not extending. So if I extend my left leg, I've got no extension left to use, so I can't access that vertical force, and now all I've got are my arms to swing. We want to flex. So it's 1, 2, 3. But what's really important is, where are we going on 3? Now, if you were throwing a ball, but you weren't allowed to move the feet, and you wanted to throw the ball off in a different direction, not just straight ahead, you would start to use your body mass. You would start to shift that mass in the direction you intend to throw. So if I wanted to throw over here, I'd start to shift my body in this direction to create momentum in that direction, and then I'd fire. If I wanted to throw the ball over there, I'd start to shift my body mass that way, and then fire the sequence. So in the case that I were allowed to move my feet, I would start to move in the direction I want to go, and then the sequence fires. So we've got a linear shift, a momentum in a linear direction, which is basically the body mass moving in the direction you want to go. And then this braces very quickly, and the body starts to rotate, and that's the angular momentum taking over. And that's the sequence. That's the pelvis, the torso, the arms, the club. That's the firing of your sequence. But what preceded this rotation was this linear shift. And it's this linear shift that's going to direct your golf swing and give you that sense of the path that you're creating with the club, because this is going to follow you. You are leading the action, and this is reacting, so you know how this is going to react, because you've already moved in the direction you want to go, firing that sequence, and naturally we can sense this golf club Instinctively we know where this is and we can let this go because we've created the conditions for this efficient sequence in the direction we intend to go. So let's go back now to the exercise and let's just get a sense of the direction. So for example, the 1, 2, 3, and it's the 2, 3 that's really important. 1, 2, 3. During that 3, from the 2 to the 3, it's not just a turn and then a turn back. There's a turn and a shift in space, and it's that shift in space that's really attuning you to that directional component for the release pattern you're going to create with the club. And that in this instance is the draw shape. So I'm going to feel, just like throwing a ball, my body mass move to the right. So now we're going to swing and shift to the right. 1, 2, 3. And if I put my right hand on the club here, I can really get a sense of where I am. I'm loaded into the floor. My upper body is still back here. It's not rotated yet. So once we've done the 1, 2, 3 and sensed where we are in space, 1, 2, 3, from this flexion, we can go into extension. And that's going to allow us to use the vertical. I can sense the arc of the club. And we can really feel that when we let the club go on 4. 1, 2, 3. I can really feel this right direction to the swing, and now we're going to go up. And if I put my right hand on the club here, this is a very typical kind of draw finish. I'm finishing more to the right of target as opposed to finishing to the left. If you're finishing over here, not intentionally playing for a fade, then maybe the movements you're making aren't actually matching the intention of the shot you're picturing. So there's a disconnect between the action you're creating and the perception of what you intend. That's really important because we've got to recognise the intention behind our movement to match the intention of the golf shot. And we know for a draw, as a right-hander, we've got to get that swing to the right. For a fade, to the left. So the whole motion has to become recognisable. Where does the club go after you've released it? Because the nervous system needs to know this to allow you to fully commit to that swing direction and recognise that motion that matches the shot, because these are powerful memories that you can revisit, and this is the recall that we need to use every time to access that repeatable shot. For the fade, we're going to go to the left. So now we're going to feel the weight transfer to the left. 1, 2, 3. This is extremely different now. Very, very different. I can feel a very different orientation in space in relation to the ball and the delivery of the club. So when I go up on 4, now the shape of the movement looks very different to previously. Now I'm more to the left. And this is affording me a swing to the left, a face that is open to the path, a ball that's going to start left of target and fade onto the target, because it's going to allow me to swing the club left of the path. We need to make sure we can shift our path to the left, shift our path to the right, and by recognising this directional element of the change of direction. So we can do this exercise without the need for the GRFi system by starting with the feet together, swishing the club forward on 1, taking a step back on 2 to swing the club back, and then shifting the weight on 3 in the direction we intend to fire the swing. So it looks like this. 1, 2, 3. And now I can sense where I am, especially when I put the trail hand back on. I can really feel myself loaded into the ground and shifted to the right for the intention of the draw. So when I go up on 4, I'm firing the sequence in this direction, which is facilitating that draw path. Likewise for the fade, still setting up square, could set up open. Remember, we can start to shift our alignment. Once we've got a feel for this, we can make life easier by just shifting our alignment, and that's going to facilitate this even further. But for the moment, we need to explore the difference. We need to experience the difference between these two directions with our weight transfer. Then we can start to refine it with the positioning of the body. But first and foremost, we have to attune ourselves to this directional element. So we're going to go to the left now, still with the square stance. 1, 2, 3. And now I've shifted to the left, put the right hand on, very different. Now I'm really feeling loaded, a bit more open, but the club is still way behind, ready to react to me going up on 4. So you can see the shape of the finish, extremely different in comparison to the draw. Now, of course, we're not just going to stand straight, aiming at a target, trying to play draws and fades, although you can do that, but it might be easier just to open or close the stance. So in this case, for the fade, I'm going to open up a little bit, and that's going to enable me to rotate with more freedom. 1, 2, 3. Now I can shift in this direction and go vertical on 4 into the fade finish. Conversely, we can go to the right, aiming a bit to the right now, feet together, and we can do the exercise with both hands on the club. We don't have to just use the lead as well. Now we can use both. 1, 2, 3. And this is really setting up now for the draw, ready to go up on 4. And that's the draw finish. So let's play a couple of shots, let's get a feel for it. So as a practice swing for the draw, you could do it with both hands, forward on 1, 1, 2, 3. You can really feel the load and the direction of the body, the direction of that weight shift. The weight's transferring, the body mass is moving in the direction I intend to swing, and now I can fire the sequence on 4, and then we can see what that feels like in a full motion. And then play the shot. So I could really sense in that number 3, that change of direction into the downswing, my body moving to the right, which naturally created this form for the release, for the draw. And it's that that resonates, it's that we can repeat, and it's that that's going to give us the feel for the opposite, for the fade. So this is the feel for me for the fade, opening up, same exercise just to get a feel. And now I can really feel myself shifting to the left, much different, up on 4, and that's the fade. What we can do now is just make a natural swing, a full motion without pausing. So we can feel it in motion. It must be dynamic. The golf swing's not static. Although we're sensing where we are in space, we need to get recognition of the whole motion from the start to the finish. So this is all flowing, it's fluid, the whole thing gels together, taking our stance, aiming left, to allow for that path, allow for that weight shift to the left, and ball curving back, left to right. So we can differentiate between the fades, the draws, through the direction of our weight transfer, and fire that sequence to create that release pattern and control your swing path.